Virtual World, Manadium, and, well, some of your other favorite rogue decks are just barely missing the mark of this format. One big 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out more awesome content. Do not be intimidated by this breakdown because we have Virtual World and we also have Manadium a little bit further back here that we're going to talk about. These decks are just barely missing these top cut slots out here. So top 8 breakdown out of Bolivia Nationals here is quite an interesting tale here where we have 5 Superheavy Samurai decks taking over top cut. Now, we have kind of seen this happening a little bit more recently out here, where, you know, more of these super heavy decks are taking over in certain regions of the world. Now, on the flip side of the equation here, you have Kashtira over here, who has been a massive dominator across the board. Actually, this is one of the very few events where we don't actually tell what the majority of the format story has been here, where you see, you guessed it, Kashtira being the dominant lead here. Now, to be honest with you, it did end up being that way, though, because Kashtira ended up winning this event. So it doesn't really matter how many super heavy samurai players you toss into the top cut at this stage in time, because Kashtira has still continued to edge out, you know, the rest of the format here. Now, something else interesting here is we had Naturia Runic barely squeaking in here, and I'm not really surprised to see that. I mean, all things considered for this format, it still is one of the rogue decks. It has fallen off exponentially, though. So this is pretty interesting. Let's pass on over to the top 8. Winning our event here was none other than Kashtira Dollar Money Bills, sporting off double Chalice in the main deck, which I think is fine. A little interesting throwback here. We got triple Droll, triple Ash, double Mourner, and double Ogre in the main deck, and we are playing the Goliath package so that you can kind of go ahead and do the shenanigans that you're very much used to seeing at this point in time, which is, you know, I love Pot of Prospering, and underneath my Arise Heart always feels super good. Next up here, we have our first Super Heavy Samurai list. Gammas in the main. Your hand trap lineup is always going to be massively standard with this. I feel like you don't get like a lot of crazy room here. I mean, like, the sauciest thing is, like, the Ghost Bells, you're still siding the Spell Canceller. We are side decking the Saruja as well, which opens up one more main deck slot for this deck. But the way that the rest of this build always feels, you've got at least 35 cards that I feel like are essentially staple at this stage. Next up here, top 4, next Super Heavy Samurai list. Today we were feeling a little bit daring. We actually opted to play 41 cards. Ooh. We actually opted for double Druis Worm in here, which I think is pretty good, all real things considered. Down here in the extra deck, triple copies of Arching. We are actually siding triple Anti-Spell Fragrance. Okay. That's an interesting little tech choice, considering the fact that, you know, we are playing Pendulums in here. That could really mess up the day. Next up here, we actually have our next Kashtira deck. This one actually is playing Summon Limit down here in the side deck. Okay, so we're feeling a little bit out here, testing out some cool, interesting ideas. Exceed Encore for Purely in case we actually ran into it. You definitely want to have that card. If not, I feel like Purely just gets a free win against you, and that's not exactly, those aren't exactly the types of L's that you want to be handing to yourself, not being prepared for. Next up here, our next Super Heavy Samurai list. Main deck feels so standard. I don't think there's anything in here that sticks out to me out of left field other than like the double Fenrir, but we've seen double Fenrir rotating through so many of these builds at this point in time that we're once again sticking to the norm at this stage. I also see that we have some anti-spell fragrances down here as well, so that's 2 decks at this stage in time that brought in anti-spell fragrances. Okay, next up here is our next Kashtira deck. We have another triple copy here of that anti-spell fragrance. So once again, this deck just goes ahead, establishes its board, you flip up the anti-spell fragrance, you offer your opponent the handshake, and you're like, well, good luck, have fun. We are also feeling daring today. We decided we wanted up our deck to 42 cards because we wanted to play the one of Kaiju in here as well. looking at this, yeah, we're citing the double Fenrir. I guess we just didn't want to main deck it, which is fine. We have our next Super Heavy Samurai deck. This one's maining Cyberstein. This is the classic iteration of the deck that I was pretty used to seeing out here. Now, we are playing anti-spell fragrances in here as well to detour and punish the opponent, which is fine. Standard hand trap lineup is all good. I see we are setting the spell canceler, which is good. We have lava golems and gamma seals down there as well. So yeah, it looks like we're covering a majority of our bases. Good stuff for this. And our last list, wow, we really were down here at the bottom. Our Naturia Runic deck here. I see that main deck feels standard. We are playing Gamma and Ogre, so that, you know, we can kind of set them to our thing. Double Fountain is pretty standardized at this point in time. And of course, it looks like an extended Bystial package. Man, oh man, those Bystials are really putting in a lot of work this format. They are covering so much ground to allow these decks a chance to kind of set up and do the thing. All right, now we're going to pass it on over to 9th place and below. Bubbling is always an unfortunate part of events here, but 9th place was actually Dragon Link. Considering how much of the meta competitors were, you know, knocking on each other's door for this event, I think it's actually particularly interesting to see that, you know, we had this round out here for particulars for this. You do see down here that we do have skill drains in the side deck as a nice little tech choice. I see we also have even leaves, and of course we have some rivalry of the warlords here. Trust me when I say this, if you played against Dragon Link and you've been rivalried, it is not exactly the funnest experience in the whole wide world. So overall, I'm happy to see that Dragon Link is still a somewhat viable competitor out here, especially, you know, grinding against the established norms of the metagame here. There are so many, I mean, really weird things out here that are going on, you know, with the meta, but seeing that Bystial control, aka a mini Fallen of Albaz package in our deck, I really am happy to see that. So, sad to see it, but we still got the chance to see it. Alright, top 16 was Dark World. What? So, we are playing double Lord Darkness. Honestly, makes sense. You can kind of turbo through some of the bad cards that you kind of see in your hand and go ahead and sculpt into some particularly better ones, which is perfectly understandable. We are playing the giant Coach King trainer in here, and of course, I see Security Dragon Akashic Magician plays. Ah, yes, my favorite of bouncing back, you know, things to our hand, generate some additional resources. That's always going to be one of our favorite things to do. Let's see here. Only 2 of the Grapha Fusion, which is pretty normal. We are playing 2 Ascension. We are playing Kaiju, so we can actually hand those to our opponent. And outside of that, I feel like everything else here looks pretty normal. I do like the prohibitions in the side deck. That way you can actually, you know, round out some of your worst matchups, right? Because trust me, this deck has a lot of things that it can randomly lose to. And I'm not trying to watch Dark World lose to the randomness out here. Next up here we have, here's our Virtual World top 16 deck. Now we are playing Archlord Christia in here. That's actually really cute. This deck has kind of been forced to adapt to, unfortunately, playing some, you know, slightly cheaper things, and especially, you know, when you can go Beatrice, drop the Christia, do revive shenanigans. There's a lot of cool things that you get with this. This is why I love Virtual World at this point in time, because it has moved into the rogue category as one of the better decks in the room for things that you can really just go, wow, I can't believe you were able to pull that off, because that's what the deck does. I mean, obviously Ultimaya, Tzolk'in plays, and, you know, said Crystal Wing is always going to be interesting. I see we're playing the Power Tool Braver in here as well. Okay. And then we're also citing Gamma Package as well, and then TC Boo down here as well. So yeah, this deck will round out a lot of your more troublesome matchups so that you can detour your opponent. Next up here, more Super Heavy Samurai. Congratulations on top 32, by the way. That's pretty impressive, honestly. We are playing the Ancient Gear package in here. I think on record we've only seen one build that has not played that package to do well, which is wild to me. We are citing Standard Bystial package down here. By Standard Bystial package, I mean you're playing some sort of Bystials. It's usually Magna Huts with 1 Duros Worm, 3 Magna Huts, 2 Magna Huts, 2 Duros Worm, sometimes 1 Duros Worm. It depends on, you know, how big you want to extend out the package. And then we see those anti-spell fragrances, which are kind of starting to feel like a pretty major norm at this point. And I think as long as players are going to continue to kind of play that card. I definitely am looking forward to seeing how much it sticks around. You know, we're trying Prohibition and some of these other little tech choices out here, but I would say by far out of this event that Anti-Spell Fragrance has been the absolute monster for this. And then next up here we have our Mana DM list here. We are playing the mini Scareclaw package with the Hero Lives stuff in here. So you'll be able to Hero Lives Prisma, reveal Vicious Stroud, drop, you know, our friend, and then go ahead and start comboing up. This is what we've been pretty much used to for the build in terms of, you know, how you want to do things. Just you decide how many Hero Lives. We are playing 2 Crossout Designators so that you can, you know, set up and do your thing. I figured this deck would be a little bit better of a rogue meta competitor as it has been, but it has not had any real chance to shine whatsoever. So that wraps up our top 32 out of Bolivia. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.